Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this BCA webinar on the evolution of the human element. Now, this is quite, I would say, a first for us here at BCA, because we've managed to navigate through the COVID protocols and the restrictions, and we have our distinguished panel of experts here with us in the studio. Of course, we have our masks, but we've been through our temperature checks and all the necessary safety measures, so we're keeping our distances also. And of course, this is the first and foremost on everyone's mind, how we keep safe and how we keep healthy. So without any further delay, I'd like to introduce our distinguished panel. First of all, starting from my far left, we have Mr. Stavros Meidanis, who's the executive at Capital Ship Management here in Piraeus, Greece. Next to him is Man, the director of Seacon Ship Management, Greece. And right next to me here is Mr. Kostas Kontes, who is the managing director of V-Ships Greece. So I think we will all agree we have quite a diverse and I would say a wide spread of experience, which reflects also the complexity and the nature of shipping today, which is truly multicultural, multinational, and of course a global industry, as we all know. But of course, what we have been seeing over the last few months has challenged everyone, I would say. So when we're talking about such an important topic like the human element, we have to put it in context. And this is what I would like to explore with all, both of you, all of you today, looking at what's happening with COVID-19 in terms of the impact on the human element, how this has affected shipping companies, ships, and of course the people behind and running the ships on a worldwide basis. So obviously we see a huge impact on operations. We see different stages of maturity, I would say, in terms of the spread of the pandemic. We've seen second waves coming in Europe. We've seen Asia perhaps getting more back to normal than we saw earlier in the year. But still, critical and correct information on the characteristics of the virus, on the pandemic, are difficult to assess. So each one of us, each company, I suppose, has to go through the relevant panels of experts to get the right information, to get as much up-to-date information and data as they can on actually what are these characteristics, and then plan their operations accordingly. And every one of us, I would say, has had to face some of the biggest challenges of our lives and careers. But I think this has also brought some opportunities in areas of collaboration, in terms of technology, the application of technology, that is, but also the way of working and relationships in terms of how we manage our teams, whether they are here with us in the offices or whether they are on the ships in every port or at the sea, in the deep seas around the world. Now, I think it's also a very good opportunity to point out that there have been various industry bodies that have been quite vocal about what should be the status of our seafarers. I know though V-Ships and your top management globally has been very, very vocal on this. But we need to stress it, I think, once more, even if people do get tired of hearing about it, that the maritime industry is the backbone of the global economy. Without it, movement of essential goods, medical supplies and equipment included, would grind to a halt. So the true heroes of the transportation are those people who keep the ships moving. And indeed, they should be frontline key workers. So we're saying this even if people are tired of listening or reading or watching us here today, but the feeling is that the world in general has not listened so far and haven't even appreciated the work that is actually being done in order to keep the trade, the essential goods and raw materials flowing, but by not even recognizing the seafarers have to repatriate or they have to be relieving their colleagues on board the ships. And without that, of course, this global flow is interrupted. So I'm not apologizing for repeating maybe these messages, but I think we should continue to voice our call collectively and hope that governments and authorities globally will finally listen and make some action. Apart from that, of course, and what we're talking about here today is the human element, human factors, which are made even more difficult and challenging because of COVID-19. What we're seeing in terms of fatigue, anxiety, mental health issues, perhaps even loss of a resilience, or loss of confidence, or even loss of relationships, which, as we all know, has a knock-on effect on performance and engagement levels on board the ships. So every company is forced to rethink how they can address and perhaps mitigate these effects. So I think enough from me, and what I'd like to do is pose the same questions to each member of the panel, but obviously because of the different levels of practical application of the different measures, I would like to see what each company is doing in practice, because I think this will be very important for the audience. So starting with Stavros, and representing a Greek shipping company and with a very strong track record and tradition in the sector, what are the actual measures that your company is taking to mitigate some of these challenges that we just mentioned?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation and the opportunity that we have to discuss, first of all, the actual challenges that we have, all of us. You pose a lot of topics, dear Apostole, and we faced and we're still facing every day because the pandemic is here. As you said, the second wave, it's hit us very strong. What we did as a company, Capital Management, having a fleet of 70 vessels, tankers, containers, bulk carriers, all of the types worldwide, trading, which is very, very important. Our first steps, our first actions were that we tried to, first of all, to communicate with all the necessary, the appropriate institutions, organizations, like WHO, in order to get the first guidelines, which is very hard. If you remember the first 2 months, I'm talking about February and March, it was very hard because the COVID-19 it was something new for all of us, even for the authorities I'm talking about, and the organizations. However, what we did, we provided from the beginning, not only the materials on board our vessels as first opportunity, and I'm talking about the masks and everything that is required and suggested by the organizations, but we tried to make a plan from the beginning for our people on board, in order to provide, first of all, accurate information, on-time information, updated information, but also to proceed with any, I would say, changes, crew changes, for those people that who already were on board for more than 4 or 5 months. That was one of our, because we saw, it was in front of us, that most probably this situation is going to take longer than we believed. So we wouldn't want to have our people on board for 8, 9, 10, 12 months. That was, I would say, our initial steps. I would like also to, because you mentioned something very, very important, and sometimes we miss that, especially for us sitting in our offices. You mentioned the mental health, which is very, very important. And sometimes we miss that, and this is wrong to do it from our end. Mental health and resilience, and the concept of resilience is very, very important for those people working aboard the vessel, stay away from their families, and they have to cope with so many difficulties, not only operational, but from the humanitarian side. Recognizing that from the beginning, I would say from the first first month, we find a provider, not only to provide, the the traditional, as we know, the medical support, but also the mental support for our people on board, and that was successful.
Right.
That was very, very successful, and we received very, very positive feedback from our people on board the vessel. In combination with our, I would say, very, very regularly, communication with our people on board, top management, make some, have some conference calls with our people, trying to give the actual situation and what we are doing as a company for them. So that was the initial steps and the measures that we took in order to mitigate the consequences at the beginning from when we faced the COVID-19. Of course, in our days, things move on, we have better information, yes. Crew changes, which I think that we will touch this later on, I suppose. It's another story, but I would like to say only one thing, because again, I think you touched this point. Our industry, shipping industry, once more, stayed alone against that COVID-19. We try to do whatever we believe, based on our experience, caring for our people, alone. Maybe someone can say that, yes, but you have to follow
even penalized.
Even penalized.
Even against, yeah.
Even penalized. You're correct, Kostas. Local regulations, national regulations, you have to cope with without someone taking into consideration that you have your people on board for 6, 7, 8 months, and they denied the crew changes or whatever it is. So, but I think that we're going to expand to this.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stavros. And yeah, you make some interesting points there, which I think we can explore a bit more as we go through the panel. I would like to just bring into the discussion Mr. Mann from Seacon, and I would say, fortunately or unfortunately, you represent the company from a part of the world, China, that was the first, I would say, to experience what has happened, what we have seen is happening around the planet. So I think from the basis of in-service experience, you have something, maybe a head start from the rest of us. I think it would help if you gave us a bit of the insight as to how your company actually dealt with these, very, very challenging issues.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. So it's a great honor to be here to share the experience. We, as the largest shipping company, private shipping company in China, we're like capital management. We manage 150 vessels, all kinds of vessels, from VLCC to smaller chemical tank, from the Kamsarmax until the small handy. So we have 3,000 crew members on board. Most of the crew members, officers are from China, are Chinese. Low crew are from Filipino or Myanmar. So how we maintain the crew to stable, to happy work
yes.
on board. So first of all, we try by all means to change them everywhere. We even charter the airplane to change the whole crew in Panama. So also for some very difficult case, we are open the unlimited Wi-Fi on board. The crew member can communicate with the outside world. So they can communicate with his friends, his family members. So let's make them very happy, like they are not alone work on board. So this is we did for the crew on board, but for everybody, as we as human being. So we have to have the support from the family. If the family always call you back, so you cannot work. From our side, whoever our money agency in Myanmar and in Philippines, in China, so we always to visit his family, to comfort something to his family, like his mother or his wife have a birthday. We send the people there. We present some gifts. We make some photos. We send to the vessel. So make those crew members are very happy. They know somebody take your family. So you know your money will be very worth. You work very valuable on board.
Yes.
So this is for the people on board. They cannot be changed immediately. So also, of course, we provide some bonus to those people over contract. Also, whatever the crew member ask, because some crew member ask for some strange things. Whatever they ask is peanut things. Like we want how good quality of protect clothes to prevent from virus. Okay, we buy for them. Just make them happy on board. So this is for the crew member. For the staff at shore, as we know, the human element is included two parts. The staff in the office, the people on board. For the staff in the office, we are become very distant. We have no chance to visit the vessel. So how we dealing with that? Our fleet vessel, if in Europe, me, our technical people from Greece, and the technical from Hamburg, we can visit the ship in Europe. If the vessel in South America, we don't have a branch office there. We will use some third parties people, like class people, to make a simple condition survey for us, to see the condition, to on behalf us to talk to the crew members. So this is where, of course, in China we are easy, where all people can visit the vessel. Apart from all this we did for our own fleet, but a lot of ships go to China, discharge in China, loading in China. Yes. So we, from other side, we have the whole shipping industry, especially for Greece, because a lot of vessels go to China. You don't have a superintendent traveling to China. You need right ship in preparation for right ship. You need share inspections. You need attendance in the shipyard, superintendent attend the shipyard. So we are going to help the company who cannot attend the vessel in China. So also, the major things, as you said, I'm come from China. How in China we are utilize our influence to the government, because China have a close for 3 months. They suspended the visa, so they don't allow any crew change. They don't allow the people to go to China. So how we do? We say, okay, ship industry in China is a very small field, not like Greece. This everybody knows here. But in China, you ask 100 people, maybe 20 people know ship. So maybe they know the ship in the river. So well, what we say, okay, look, Manila is open. They have 1,000 vessels there. They have changed a lot of crew there. So we are the big country. We have a lot of vessels operate. We have to do at least the humanitarian help to the people who come on. So by our influence, finally, the foreign minister also we organize the people, especially in Greece. Many owners we see the ambassador, so we tell the difficulty to them. So they, through the foreign minister, first transportation minister, then finally they get the policy to open 10 ports for the foreign crew change.
Okay.
So we did our agency department did the first one to change the crew, the delivery was from the German owner to the Chinese. We repatriated the Filipino crew. So also we didn't, because we have an agency department, also we're handling a lot of, like we are exclusive agency for navies. So we're dealing a lot of cases. The crew member contract COVID. So something, right now, we have the vessel from some company. There are 6 crew member contract with the crew members. So how we help the ship owner, not without stop the cargo operation, to handle this case. You know, for example, one vessel alongside the Qingdao port, they got the test, found some crew member, so they immediately stopped, isolated the vessel. And so we are the agent. So the owner called me, we cannot stay here to pay the port due, berth due. We have to start discharging. So we are negotiating with the government together with the cargo receiver. Finally, we did. They stopped 2 hours. Then we organized the people took it over, to dispatch the crew member to the hospital. Mm-hmm. Then we resume the discharging. So we did this up to today, 5 vessels. So very successfully.
Right. Okay, good.
This is our opinion.
So this is, I mean, I think this is very interesting, and I think it's good for everyone to hear what is actually happening, and you know, the experiences that you just described, and also the real cases that you've had. I think are examples of how we can actually share the knowledge on how you respond, how you address, and perhaps how you put in place some preventive measures, because I guess this is on everyone's mind. How can you actually prevent some of this happening? Because if it happens, then you know you're inevitably going to be on, let's say, firefighting mode, and trying first of all to ensure the health and the welfare of the people. But then, as you say, you have the commercial operations that may be affected in terms of delays, and then you've got your charterers, calling you and harassing us and saying, you know, what's going on, and this is escalating the pressure all around. So I think we can explore that bit on the second round of our questions. But first, I'd like to hear from Kostas. In terms of because you have a truly international presence.
Yes.
How you have actually experienced this situation up to now?
You know, it's the group, as big group, has. I mean, majority of the things and actions are similarly shared by ourselves, and I heard what Stavros has said before, and we are in line on the proactive approach we have taken towards involving, let's say, a consultancy or a hotline for the mental health, proactively talking on board the vessels. The senior management, the senior executives of the group have personally contacted phone calls and town halls with the vessels to be able to share concerns, share proactively the plan of crew changes with the vessels, so that they know what is happening, or any information we have been receiving at the time from the various port authorities, and where crew changes are allowed and where not. But
how does this work in practice? I mean, you mentioned the town halls.
Yeah, I mean, we have been.
Do people give the feedback? Do they give the true feedback?
I mean, yes, because we have encouraged them to openly speak.
Yeah.
And tell them and tell us what do they really, where their concern is. You know, because at the same time, while they feel safe on board the vessels, they are concerned about their families ashore.
For sure.
Then something that was not touched, and we have been seeing that and happening right now actually, is the people that they are ashore, and they have been ashore for a period of more than 12 months, looking for a job.
Yes.
And they have no income for their families. And these people outside ashore are waiting for the first opportunity to embark. Therefore, how do you maintain these people loyal with your company? How do you make sure that these people they support their families because they are people that have been working with you. So it's a combination of how do you make sure that you help or you control the situation on board, making sure that you discuss, you explain, you share concerns, and at the same time you communicate with your seafarers, your colleagues ashore. And then we should not forget that the people in our offices are also taking a lot of the load to make sure that the mobilizations are done effectively. There is a risk assessment in every port. The regulations in every port are changing. I mean, we mentioned about China before, but if you carry out a crew change prior to call a Chinese port, the vessel might be not allowed to discharge for 14 days.
14 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Then if you are not careful or you have the opportunity to make a crew change, you satisfy the crew change, but then commercially then you have an issue. We should not forget that Korea, for example, has issued, how do you call it, requested for any joining crew to have a visa. Visa issuance is more than 10 days. That means that we are taking delivery of a couple of vessels right now. That means that you need at least 2 weeks to have everything ready there, and then the quarantine period down in Korea. So, you know, times it's a bit very complex. It's a trick. Your people in the office need to be very, very much focused. They need to be very tuned in what are the requirements, know everything. The risk assessment on how do you take your seafarer, your colleague from his hometown on board the vessel has to be in every possible assessed, every possible point. And we see that either it is in Ukraine, or we see that if it is in China, or if it is in Manila, or if it is in Romania, you know, every nationality that you have. So that's the biggest challenge today.
Thank you, Kostas, and I think some very useful insight, I think, from all three of you there. Before we go into the second round of questions, just for the audience who are listening and watching us, you are free to pose your questions online, and these will be gathered at the end, and we can go through them. We will allocate some time accordingly. So please feel free, based on what you've heard, and as the webinar progresses, to make any questions to our panel. So moving on, what I wanted really to bring in is some of the, let's say, the traditional and I would say the critical challenges that we all face related to the human element. So, you know, we all know that the mix, having the correct mix of people on board is very important. You know, three important considerations there are the nationality. I think you mentioned this already, but nationality clearly, and language. But then we have the terms and conditions. So, you know, employment terms and conditions. Everyone is, you know, very importantly focusing on that. And then we have what we are expecting in terms of the competencies in order to carry out the job versus what is actual in terms of the competence, what we actually find people can do. And the challenge there, of course, is to match the right people to the right job and at the right time. And now, with the crisis that we're facing in terms of crew changes, it becomes even greater, I would say. So I think we shouldn't lose focus on the strategic factors that we are looking at in terms of the human element. But this is how we can actually, based on the situation that we are going through now, actually turn it around into opportunities. And this is what I'd like to explore with each of you over this next few minutes. Actually, what are the best practices, say Stavros, in terms of capital ship management? What are the actual measures that you've put in place in terms of crew changes? How you're doing this? Is it a very complex algorithm that you're using in order to actually plan and implement these changes? Or do you have to be in touch with what is happening in every single port and every single country in terms of local, national protocols, et cetera, which are impacting on your operations?
Yeah. First of all, I would agree about the multicultural, with this multicultural approach that we have also to face. And taking the point that Kostas mentioned earlier, the most important thing, and I would say a part of our success during especially the first period of phase of the COVID-19 was that we tried to explain to our people on board that you are safer than we are, actually, and that was true. And then, and I fully agree, and that was at least my personal experience that because I used to discuss a lot with our people on board, all of them, they cared about their families. So the focus was to give something and to give proofs and objective evidence that we care not only for them on board, that for example, for a VLCC, for having 40 days trip, voyage from Singapore to the Gulf, for example. No one comes to contact with anyone else externally, I'm talking about, but they care about the families back. We have Romanian people, Romanian crews, Russians, and Filipino crews. So our focus was there, I would say, first of all. Now, regarding the planning, I would be very glad to have some kind of algorithm, as you say. I am a big fan of this kind of analysis, but unfortunately, there is not up to now, at least. And let me give you an example and experience that all of us we faced. Singapore, until September, opened and closed 3 times. And when we're talking about the Singapore is closing 3 times, half of planet collapse. And we faced that. And when Singaporean authorities announced closing, it was 2 days or 2 days before the decision. So whatever plans you had to change people, to make the arrangements, to issue visas, to fly your people from around countries, Romania, Russia, Philippines, to Singapore, for example, was useless. So I would say we adapted on a case-by-case basis crew changes whenever was possible. Otherwise, it was not feasible to do that. And because, Manolis, you mentioned Philippines, and we have our own office in Manila. If our people stay to the Manila metropolitan area, would be good.
Yes.
If they are coming from Iloilo right now, it's bad and you cannot fly to Manila. So we have restrictions, local restrictions within country.
Yeah, right.
So I would say that the planning is every day and every night to see and to work very, very hard in our crew department and all the teams in our office at least, but I'm sure for all shipping companies, to make the best for our people and to make the crew changes and everything.
There's all this big talk lately about these safe corridors. I mean, having, let's say, Manila, Singapore established. What is actually happening, though? Is it truly safe?
I cannot say that those corridors are safe, I would say.
As you say, I think it's a case-by-case analysis of what is actually happening.
Exactly.
I think you mentioned before, Kostas, the risk assessment,
Risk assessment,
which has to be done.
Otherwise,
on a live basis, I guess.
it's impossible. I mean,
So
you need to take a measure like isolating, get a bus that is only your 10 people for the crew change, make sure, and the bus capacity is for 30 people, for example. You need to make sure that you arrive in a hotel where it has been tested, to make sure that you isolate them there, have a camera making sure that nobody goes in and out.
Sometimes with very bad living conditions.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so I would say that it was the safe corridors. I mean, we have to think that we're talking about people that they want to be on board and people that they have to come to the ashore. So I don't think it was something like a success story. We can represent that. This is my opinion, I would say, first of all.
So Manolis, in terms of China, if we can focus a bit on that, and just a few days ago there was an announcement about new protocols in place in different Chinese ports. What is actually happening now? How easy or difficult is it for companies to effect crew changes in China?
Since the new policy for the enforcement, in some ports they are allowed to change the crew. There are so far. There are only 3 successful cases to change the foreigner crew. Eventually, eventually is really difficult. Even the central government have the policy, but if their own terminal, they have their own policy. They have a lot of restrictions. For example, some terminals, they do not allow. I say, okay, we are not touching your terminal. We send the crew member from other side by the boat. Come, no. I say, okay, I send the crew by helicopter. No. So the central government have their hotline. You can claim that they are not compliant, but still, it does not make some sense. We can claim we are the agency. So on behalf of the owner, we call, we say this terminal are not compliant with the policy. They say, okay, we investigate. Close the phone. You don't have feedback. So we are still feeling the prevention of the virus is more important than anything else. Even they have the policy. So you see how difficult. Let's say for the outsider, if for example, you have an outsider from Ukraine. Before Ukraine, crew members do not need a visa, go to China. They fly to visa and join the vessel. Today, you have to get a visa. Where you get the invitation letters? The invitation letter is quite difficult, except by the embassy in Kiev. Anywhere, even Greece. It's quite difficult. So if they accept, fail. If they accept, okay. Before your departure, you have a PCR test by the clinic, recognized by the local embassy. Okay, you got it. You got a ticket. You fly. There in China, you got 14 days quarantine. Then you can join the West. You can see for the on-site how difficult. So you have to. So
you need to have a negative PCR test.
Right.
72 hours before.
24 hours.
24 hours.
24 hours before you take off the plane.
And the quarantine period.
Yes.
14 days.
Yes.
Invitation letter.
Yeah.
Immediately we can see this is a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
But I think, sorry to interrupt you, I think what the feedback that we're receiving from Manolis, it's quite interesting for one reason. I mean, if you struggle in China, having all those connections as you initially,
imagine.
What about the other companies that don't have so many? It's a nightmare.
I mean, right.
I'm unfortunate that you say. I mean,
for the foreigners, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Well, we did one success case. Also, Greek owner, they have new building in China. They insist to use their own crew from Russia. Okay, what can do? The government, okay, we organize. We say, okay, we go to the foreign minister. We say, this is our clients. They have new building in one shipyard. They're going to deliver next month. So finally, okay, we get the visa. So we charter the airplane, direct flight to the shipyard.
To the shipyard.
To the shipyard. So we did that, but it's really, really difficult.
You
But,
would say this was an exceptional case.
Yeah, yes. Usually,
But it's possible.
Yeah, usually we provide some alternative solution because we have our own crew pools. In case, for some reason, a lot of you have accident on board. You have a crew contract with virus. Some other criminal things. So the crew are shortage. Not much the minimum safe money. So usually they cannot send. Also very tough for us if with short notice. Planning your foreign crew to join. Okay, we send our own crew.
Chinese.
Yeah, Chinese crew on board to help them. This is mostly we do this way.
Yeah.
For the offside.
But this is very, very interesting. If we're talking about tankers,
Yeah.
how you deal and you comply with the TMSA and the oil major
crew
requirement?
matrix.
I'm talking about the matrix.
I was going to come to that because this is an important question.
Yeah, that's why I'm
you
saying.
have to forget that.
Okay, okay.
You have to forget that because in this case you cannot.
I'm not sure that
You-
like
you
my
could
boss
forget
to forget about that. My
You
boss.
could forget it, but will the
for-
charterers forget it?
For
This is
the
the thing.
junior, for the junior officer.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
fine.
I'm talking because you said I
Yeah.
can send.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
you know, I can send a full crew, Chinese crew,
So
but
it's-
you are not complying with the matrix about with the.
You need to
Years
give
operator.
We did with one. What's the name of the company? I forgot. We sent the master because the vessel was chartered by Unicorn. The
Yeah,
Chinese.
okay,
That's fine. So we sent one master, the Chinese master.
Okay.
Yeah.
You need to get an exemption, go to the
Yes.
nearest port, and then
Yeah.
get
Exactly.
someone.
Yeah.
But it was for one or two persons,
Yeah,
by
Yeah.
senior officers at least. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing here is that you're probably, I mean, as a company, you would like to change the people that have exceeded their, let's say, expected contract length as soon as you can. And maybe you have more people than you would like to be changed.
You're right.
And then what happens with the crew matrix? What happens with the number of changes that you can actually make without having the oil major on your back saying, you know, how do you ensure continuity of operations? So I think it has to be a balance and something we'll have to give.
Yeah.
But I mean, have we seen in practice contracts of employment being exceeded? Costas?
Yes. I mean, there have been renewed contracts or extended contracts, exceeded contracts. Yes, of course. I mean, you have been in trades where ships were trading with no convenient port of exchanging crew. So
Changing.
now, eventually, what we are doing all as companies, I guess, is looking after very closely the overdues. I'm getting a list of my initial contract overdue crew every week, making sure that we are working on a plan, or when it is not possible, we are going with the flag authorities, administration, getting a permission to trade. So this is something that we are trying to assess and make sure that we eliminate the overdues. Before any possible second wave, we are making sure that we do all the crew changes right now, making sure that we have at least ahead of us a clear period before any possible second lockdown. And third, biggest concern I have right now, and I guess majority of the colleagues, is accessing the ships from the office. So now I'm facing a lot of challenges in having ships not easy to go
be
on board, to
inspected.
be inspected. Okay, there are the audits coming going from the local authorities or PSC inspections, or we make sure that there is a remote survey. But the remote survey, despite the fact that the technology is still there, is still something that is not fully 100% working. So in the sense that the feeling of a superintendent speaking face to face with the master or the chief engineer, making sure that he sees the vessel sees in his own eyes, I think it's still missing.
So how do you address this,
Luckily,
this concern?
I work for a group where we have a very long, a very big network. So we are able in almost every location around the world, even if it is Latin America or China or US, to have a local, or Australia, to have a local inspector that is able to go on board the vessel. They know our systems, they go on board, and make sure that they report back to us. So that's one of the things that we are doing, and then make sure that we are preparing the vessels if they are going in high-risk areas, or post-controls, whatever, remotely, with pictures. We have a standard procedure back in the office that we address. It is not always possible, but for me, that's the biggest issue, concern I'm working in the office.
So you think this hybrid approach of, let's say, having some remote surveys and inspections combined or accompanied with some physical inspection,
correct,
where possible,
yes,
is the solution?
This is for
at
the
least,
time being,
at least for the conditions that we can foresee.
Obviously, we are working on towards finding possibilities to send our superintendents where it is possible. I mean, going in the Black Sea, passing through Greece, it's no brainer that we are going to be making a stopover to embark someone, or going in North Europe or in US. We are able still to make sure that, but Asia still is a problem.
And in terms of regulations, do you think that this is an opportunity for, let's say, the regulators, with the necessary input and proposals coming from the various industry bodies, to look at how perhaps exceptional circumstances such as the ones we have now, and maybe in a few months down the line we'll have other or differing exceptional circumstances, that amendments perhaps to MLC, ILO should be adopted?
No, I'm not very positive about that. I mean, MLC is giving you already the allowance up to 12 months, Stavro, correct?
Right.
So 12 months is already a very long period. So I think that we should look at how we can eventually, even if we're living extremely difficult circumstances, you can get, where there is something wrong there, an exemption. I think the flag authorities are understandably agreeing and supporting that. But the rule should remain a rule, I think, to the extension of the contract.
But the recognition and many ship owners' bodies have been very vocal about this. The shipping is global, therefore regulation should be global.
Yeah.
If each country goes their own way, then you can only bring chaos to the industry. We're seeing this perhaps with another topic, maybe for another webinar, which is decarbonization. But with what we're going through now, as I said before, it's a nightmare for each company to just monitor what is happening on a local basis.
Also to prove to us that shipping has been a reason for a growing or expanding COVID within the globe. So, I mean, tourism is still there, tourism is happening. So,
like emissions.
Shipping, there is a protective measures taken proactively. You see that things are happening very coordinated. So why you are penalizing this industry, and then eventually, on the other hand, you have industries like, on the tourist side, you're allowing everything openly, and
I think a good example of that is the cruise industry, where they were completely penalized from day one, and still there is practically zero activity globally.
Yes.
And then
For
you have
2021.
theatres and cinemas and
some
bars and tourist industries open on the land, where one could argue that the ship is safer. So I think these are key issues which need to be addressed. I think we need to flag them up, which we're doing, but each one of your experiences in practice is very important. Stavros.
Yes, fully agree what Kostas just said. With regards to regulations, and yes, we're on the same page, I would say that recently, only recently, I would say that during this pandemic that we are facing, our authorities, I'm talking about the flag administrations, classification societies, even a king, I'm talking about the tankers market. I mean, as soon as OKIMF issued officially the remote surveys, remote assessment, which was a huge step, and the shipping industry welcomed this, the understanding of classification societies, but also with the flags, which is enable us to do our jobs, on a daily basis. I think that this is something that already came and will stay. But as you said, having a balance. Yes, the physical attendance would never be possible to replace by remote audit surveys, whatever it is. But I may see in the future, not in 3-5 years, but maybe the next couple of years, I would say, to have some changes to the classification rules for a specific, for specific items to be done remotely. The same with for the flags, and even with the oil majors or other bodies. And this is very, very good and very, very important because we are managing to cope with these new challenges that we have in front of us. And in order to close my position is that we mentioned, I think, in the beginning. Again, we're talking about what we as shipping industry, we are doing. I mean, we as shipping companies, we as authorities, flag administrations, interested partners in shipping, a part of that, nobody cares, I would say. Nobody makes something favorable to the shipping industry to support, not to make any favors, but to support the shipping industry at the same time. Big organizations, worldwide organizations, during the peak of the pandemic, they didn't provide any support. And we tried, I don't know, successfully or not, to find the solutions by ourselves, with our feedback, with our experience, sharing our experience between us. We are discussing every day, expressing our. I think that's something that, I don't know, maybe would be IMO, the next sessions, to put as a first topic on the agenda, in order to support, because we never know how is going to the things to be the next couple of years.
I think we all agree it has to be a global and combined and collected effort in order to be effective. Otherwise, as we said before, there will be, let's say, different measures applied in different parts of the world, and
we have plenty examples.
Those who travel, those ships that travel worldwide will have an issue in terms of what is a level playing field.
So what I'm thinking, because I have mentioned, because the shipping industry is a very small industry, the government, because the government make the policy to restrict everything. So since we are a private company, we are not like in China they have Costco, they're a government company. They can influence the government. Here, around the world, the shipping company mostly they are private company. They are very weak. They are very weak. Even the international organization like IMO, ITF, this kind of organization, they cannot influence each country their own policy. So, what we did in the past, if we want to influence it, like China, we can organize the ship owner to see the ambassador here. We can organize, and we have organized the ship owner to have the video conference with MPA representative in Singapore. So this is we only can do. The ship owner have to be unified together. So then use our joint force to guide the government. This is, I think this is the only solution. You do not rely on some international organization because they are focused on some, they are only make the regulations for you.
Okay.
Good. So the questions are coming in, so that's good news. Shows that people are listening. One of them, which actually came at the beginning, was there is a balance. How do you strike the balance between safety and commercial activities? How do companies in practice actually prioritize? Whoever wants to pick that up.
There should not be a compromise there. Even safety is a priority. I mean, I'm representing a third-party independent technical manager. So there is no compromise on safety. Safety is number one, should remain number one focus for every technical manager. And upon completion, upon making sure that safety is a priority, then you look at the commercial aspect of the business. Any decision that compromises safety does not compromise also only reputation, compromises lives, compromises assets that they are costing millions, and those decisions should be very, very carefully made by people that they are having priorities in their mind. That's my point.
And who actually pays? I mean, for the additional measures, who pays? The owners, the charterers? How does that work?
Usually, the owner, the manager should pay attention. We have our policy says one vote rejection if something affects the safety.
One vote?
Yeah, reject.
Reject.
Yeah.
Stavros?
Yes, I would say.
Your views?
I don't think that we have to discuss a lot about if we can compromise the safety, for sure. And I would say the adverse, I would pose the adverse question, the opposite question is why we are sitting here and we're discussing the difficulties that we have right now to change our people effectively and in the proper manner if we don't care about safety. The easy thing is to send someone aboard the first opportunity without taking into consideration rules, regulations, actual operations, potential operation of the vessel, or even when you care about our people, for your people on board regarding their health, in order not to compromise the safety on board. That's why we are doing. So I believe that for no reason, commercial decision is coming before the safety. Otherwise, if we don't have the safety, we don't have, at the end of the day, as Costa said about it, the commercial.
The performance. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Another question, which is interesting. Given the travel restrictions per country, which crew nationalities are preferred because it's easier to conduct the crew change? And do the speakers foresee that this will be a permanent preference? Who would like to pick that up first? Manolis?
The Filipino is the easy crew, easy place to change. Manila is the easy
yes.
place. Yeah.
Visa requirements.
Yeah,
and
everything is easy. Yeah.
Logistics
Yes.
and so on.
Agree.
What about European? I mean,
Ukrainians.
you deal with a lot of European
Yes.
Union.
Romanians.
Yes, we have
Yeah.
Romanians. We have.
What's the situation there? Do you see that? I mean, okay, as a strategy, your company has gone down that route. But do you see this changing because of restrictions?
No. We'll not change our strategy on that point. But regarding the, I mean, for our Filipino officers and crew members, it's easier for. But we're not. There's not in our intentions right now to do something like that.
Kostas?
Yeah, I think we have been able to source our seafarers from Ukraine or Russia or India or the Philippines, and we didn't have any issues because they are typically seafarers nations,
Mhm.
and they have been giving, promoting, let's say, the facilitation of making sure that those good changes are happening effectively.
Okay, and another question is, and I think we touched upon it, but maybe we can just explore it a bit more. Have we seen any increase in the numbers of social conflicts on board the vessels as a result of this continuing situation? Manolis, you mentioned before your aim is to keep everyone happy. I really like that, almost like an objective, a slogan, if you like. But have you seen problems between seafarers or between people on board and in the office as a result of this
yes,
pressure?
We for example, we have one chief engineer who says, I will stop the vessel anyway. I give you the deadline. Tomorrow, 12 o'clock, I will stop the engine. So otherwise you have to agree. I'm going to disembark in Singapore.
So how do you react to that?
Yeah. So I say, okay, first of all, we agree you disembark in Singapore. Yeah, first of all, do not give us a deadline. Then, as I mentioned later, we send the people to his family. We ask what's the problem in your family. He said, okay, the wife's mother have health problem. So okay, in another cities, we send the people to another cities. So we say your son is a good man. We need him on board. We don't want to keep him because this is the situation we cannot do. So usually the old man says, okay, I would like to talk to my son. I say, okay, call him. Then everything goes fine. So there are some extremely, if you don't solve it, there will be explosion. And we have a Myanmar crew as well. They say, okay, anyway, we're going to Singapore, we disembark. So I will call ITF, I will call all organizations, I'm going to disembark. So I say, okay. So then I say, if the MLC, ITF, if nobody take care of you, only we can take care of you. So eventually, the same things. The one crew member, his father was dying. Okay, we send people there. Also, on board these three, I said, they ask very small money eventually. They say, we want the over-contract bonus, 200 each month. We say, oh my God, very good. That's too much. So we solve the problem. There is, yeah.
Any other experiences, Kostas,
No, I mean, yes,
on
true.
that?
We have had cases where, I mean, some of the people, they are taking this also, on the other hand, as an opportunity to get additional benefits. And we have had cases where, he just completed his contract with no overdue or whatever. He was saying that if you want me to stay longer, if you don't crew change, if you don't make any crew change, I'm expecting now an increase of my salary by so much. So, you have had case, or you have had I have had a case with a master that he was calling me in the office saying, my crew wants to disembark and I will disembark in the next port, make sure that you find a replacement. Things like that, which you need to intervene, you need to discuss with them, make sure that somehow calm them down, try to aim to find a solution which is a compromise solution. But we have seen it, we are going to see it coming in. We need to be prepared.
But have you actually seen retention levels being affected by
the retention levels
crisis?
have been affected because of the situation I described before, where the people ashore, they are waiting for an assignment. And if this assignment, because of the crew changes now, is not clear, they get their back and they move and they get the first opportunity to move in another company.
Yes, yeah.
And this is, I mean, I have had a couple of cases where I'm looking for a very good chief engineer we had. He's now back in another company, another vessel, because he said, I got this assignment as soon as possible now, and I got it. This is unfortunately, we are going to see that.
So this is another emerging, I would say, challenge
Mm.
that comes out of this
It is,
crisis.
It is.
Um,
Unfortunately.
and again, it's something for the companies to try to address and mitigate
Unfortunately.
in terms of ensuring continuity of
True.
their manning and
Yeah.
the crew pools.
Yes.
So as we're coming to an end, and for anyone wanting to have questions after this webinar, we can record them and answer offline.
Mhm.
I'm sure each of us would be happy to do that. But I'd just like to summarize in terms of what we've covered today. I think the mental health issue is one that I've heard quite strongly, and the importance to try to support professionally with professional, let's say, experts actually being involved, either being outsourced or
Yeah.
within the companies, if they are larger perhaps. In terms of governmental pressure, the industry will need to keep this going, because up to now we haven't seen many results, although there have been some improvements. In terms of the second wave, we've seen things going backwards again. So I think the first thing is to listen. The industry needs to be listened to. Our seafarers need to be listened to, and their concerns actually acted upon. And I think everyone in each one of our companies will have to go back and see how this channel of communication between our people on board and people in the office and, of course, the governments can actually be enhanced in order to actually achieve what is, I think, a global societal and economic aim to try to keep the goods transportation going, and of course, as we said before, ensuring safety and well-being of our people as the topmost priority. So I'd like to thank each one of you. I think it's been very, very interesting, and I hope it has been for everyone listening and watching us today. Thank you, big thank you to BCA for hosting us. And everyone, please stay safe, and I hope to be able to renew this discussion perhaps at a later stage.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you, guys.